The movie starts with a house on fire. A little girl with a white streak in her hair walks away from the burning house but then falls down in the street. The story then skips ahead 8 years. The girl, now called Phoenix, is running away from a dog. She climbs a fence and finds a car with a gun inside. Suddenly, Norman the blind man appears and takes the gun from her. It turns out this was all a training exercise. Norman is teaching Phoenix how to survive, and the dog she was running from is actually his pet, named Shadow. Norman has been taking care of Phoenix like she is his own daughter for many years, but he doesn't let her have a normal childhood because he won't let her go to public school. One day, Norman's friend Hernandez, who used to be an army ranger, takes Phoenix out for the day. They go to the park, but even though Phoenix wants to play with the other kids, she stays back. Later, they stop at a gas station and see a news report about a surgeon getting arrested for being part of a black market organ donor scheme. Phoenix goes to the bathroom and meets a man named Raylan, who seems to be acting creepy towards her. But Phoenix has her dog, Shadow, stand by her, so Raylan leaves her alone. When they get back home, Hernandez tells Norman that Phoenix deserves to have a normal childhood. She also tells him not to feel like a bad person because of the mistakes he made in the past when he was a Navy SEAL. On her way home, Hernandez sees a truck blocking the road. She honks the horn, but no one answers, so she has to get out of her car. She walks over and finds Raylan and his friends, Duke, Jared, and Raul, sitting in the truck. Hernandez tells them to move the truck, and they do. But when she goes back to her car, another bad guy named Jim Bob suddenly attacks her. He hits Hernandez with a hammer and kills her. Phoenix is getting ready for bed when her dog, Shadow, starts barking at something. Norman tries to feed Shadow but realizes he's not coming. Worried, Norman goes outside and feels around, only to find Shadow dead with a bullet in him. He knows something is wrong. 5 bad guys, including Raylan, Duke, Jared, Raul, and Jim Bob, break into the house. Phoenix sees them and sneaks through the room without being noticed, but she runs into Jim Bob, who almost catches her. Just then, Norman bursts through the door behind Jim Bob and attacks him, giving Phoenix a chance to escape. Norman gets hurt and goes to take care of his wound when Jared finds him. Norman fights Jared and uses super glue to seal Jared's mouth and nose shut, trying to suffocate him. Jim Bob, who is Jared's brother, comes and pokes a hole in Jared's cheek so he can breathe. Then Jared uses broken glass to cut the glue off and free himself. Phoenix runs to the basement, but Duke breaks through the door. She hides in a container and locks herself in, but Duke starts filling it with water. Norman makes his way down and tries to smoke Duke out, but Duke places a live wire above the container, planning to electrocute Phoenix when the water rises. Norman fights Duke, who keeps trying to grab a knife. Norman pulls the wire away from the container and hides behind a table. He then throws the wire to ignite the gas, causing an explosion that fries Duke. Norman tips the container over, letting the water out and rescuing Phoenix. As Norman and Phoenix try to escape, the other 4 bad guys search for them. Raylan calls out to Phoenix, telling her that Norman isn't her real father and has been lying to her. When Raylan finds them, he takes off his hat, showing that he has a white streak in his hair just like Phoenix. This reveals that he is her biological father. He explains that he was blamed for the explosion at their home and spent years in jail, waiting to find Phoenix again. Meanwhile, Jared finds Norman and attacks him, but Norman smashes Jared's skull with a shovel. Jim Bob discovers his brother's body and is heartbroken. Raylan's dog attacks Norman while Raul knocks Phoenix out with a chloroform rag. After capturing Phoenix and incapacitating Norman, the goons set the house on fire and leave Norman and the dog to die. Raylan takes Phoenix to his home, which is like a drug den. He tells her that her real name is Tara and shares other details about her past. Phoenix doesn't want to stay and starts to leave until she hears a woman in a wheelchair singing a song called Blackbird, which she remembers from her childhood. The woman is Phoenix's biological mother and Raylan's wife, Josephine. They take Phoenix to a room and explain that their house was a meth lab that exploded, and the chemicals from the explosion badly damaged Josephine's heart. Now, Josephine needs a heart transplant, and they plan to use Phoenix's heart. They give Phoenix some orange juice with drugs in it, and she passes out. Norman wakes up and finds Raylan's dog, managing to get her to help him walk back to Raylan's house while he gathers supplies. The heart surgery is about to happen, and Raylan has brought in the surgeon from the news earlier. Raul is disgusted by the whole plan, but he seems to be the only one who has a problem with it. Just as the surgeon is about to cut out Phoenix's heart, the power goes out. The goons go after Norman, but Jim Bob tries to fight him to get revenge for Jared's death. Norman uses small metal balls to block Jim Bob's airway, making him hear loudly whenever he goes, so Norman throws a hammer at Jim Bob's head. Raul goes with 3 other gunmen to find him. In the chaotic scene, Norman slashes the surgeon's throat, stopping the villains in their tracks. He sets off smoke bombs, creating confusion while Raylan tries to catch him. Shots ring out, and tragically, Raylan accidentally shoots Josephine dead. Her wheelchair rolls dangerously toward a deep, empty pool with Phoenix handcuffed to her. In a desperate attempt to escape, Phoenix grabs a machete and begins hacking at Josephine's arm to free herself, but they both fall into the pool. Meanwhile, Norman confronts Raylan and in a fierce struggle, gouges out his eyes with his thumbs. As Phoenix climbs out of the pool, Norman, overwhelmed by guilt and the evil deeds he's committed, tells her to stay away, confessing he's just a bad man. Thinking Phoenix has left, Raylan attacks Norman, stabbing him in the back and nearly slashing his throat. In a stunning twist, Phoenix returns and impales Raylan with the machete, sending him plummeting into the pool beside Josephine. Phoenix cradles Norman in her arms, believing him to be dying. Phoenix leaves the facility and goes to the park where she finds the kids she saw earlier. She asks if she can join them, and they happily let her. She introduces herself as Phoenix, finally embracing her true name and beginning a new chapter of her life. After the credits roll, the scene shows Norman's body lying still. Then, the dog comes by and sniffs around him, suggesting that Norman might still be alive. The implication gives hope that Norman could have survived the ordeal, leaving room for a possible continuation of his story. Which movie should we recap next? Drop your suggestions in the comments below, and don't forget to hit that subscribe button for more movie recaps. Thanks for watching.